Hi everyone, it's John. Welcome back. This was the second installment of my weekly YouTube video tutorial series for Excel VBA for numerical methods. In this video, we will be covering what option explicit means and what declaration of variables mean and what dimensionalizing the variables means. And then we'll also cover some basic functions and subroutines. Again, I don't think I really covered that very well in the last video. Alright, so go up to Visual Basic, and as you can see, I already entered in option explicit up here. What option explicit does is it forces you to declare all of the variables you use in this module. So I have already listed some of the data types that you can dimensionalize things as or declare them as, and so right here, the main differences between these, they have different operational, uses, but it's the size that you're looking at. In this class, none of the code you write or you should write will require it to be necessary to change all of these and be specific to using these, but I will go through them anyway just in case. An integer will store only an integer. It won't store anything with decimals, and it can't handle that. It is only 2 bytes. A Boolean, it stores it either as a yes or a no, true or false actually, and so it really can only have two things stored in it. A double, on the other hand, that can store pretty much any number you put inside of it, up to 30 decimals or something crazy. I don't remember exactly what it is offhand. And then a string can store any kind of number or character, and it can have really, really long strings or long, lists of those characters and variables. And a variant, I prefer just variant because when you're using variables, if you have it declared as a variant, whatever first pops up, and so if you say x equals 1.5 and you dimmed x or dimensionalized or declared x as an integer, it wouldn't really be able to handle this 1.5. I think it would round up to 2 offhand, but I'm not exactly sure, or maybe just treat it as 1. But if you declared x as a variable or as a variant, it will kind of treat it as a double or treat it like that. But you can also say x equals some kind of phrase like the dog, I don't know, and it would be able to handle the characters in there as well, when a double would not be able to. But I think in this class, really the only things you'll use are doubles or variants, which you may not even have to dimensionalize or declare something as a variant, because VBA will auto, if you don't dimensionalize or declare it as, it'll auto go to variant. Alright, so let's write a basic function right now. From what I've seen in Excel, or in VBA, sorry, if you take the log of something, I believe it takes the natural log of that x value. And so in most of my spreadsheets, or anywhere that I might even consider using a log, I will make my own log. Oops, sorry. First you have to write function. That's not how you spell function. And then I call it my log. And then I have x as an input. Anything that's inside of this parentheses will be the input of your function. And so you can actually declare stuff inside of here too. So as, let's say, double. And you can see again, auto capitalizes, turns blue, and spaces as needed. So you can either say my log equals log of x divided by log of 10, and if I remember my log rules correctly, that should basically take this x, or take the log of that x base 10. So and now I'm going to write a slightly different function. Oh, one other thing that I should mention, there's this thing called nesting. So if you noticed, I tabbed this over. It's called nesting. It really is more of just an aesthetic thing that you can add to your spreadsheet or your module or your code. It just makes things more organized and more clear. And back up to here, the reason why these are green, it has them as kind of comments in the module itself. It will not actually run on these, or it will not run the code. If you take out this, what is it called? Not apostrophe, yeah, apostrophe. It turns it back to a line that it would read or would try to read. But if you put an apostrophe there, it turns it green and it completely ignores it. So you can make comments inside of your text, or inside of your code. And so I can comment this by saying takes log and turns it base 10. And the comment will be there. I strongly suggest commenting your code. That was one thing that I was never very good at when going through there. But if you're writing longer bits of code, it makes it a whole lot easier to comment it, because in this case I can just look and see the comment takes log and returns base 10, or I can see basically what different loops or different chunks are doing without actually having to read through and understand what it's doing. So I would definitely suggest commenting code. All right, so let's make a new function. Function my second function. So we can figure out the inputs later. But let's say we need to have some issue, or some equation is given where it's, let's say y equals log of x plus x squared minus z plus 3. Let's say that is the given equation for the problem that we're trying to solve. So in this case, we can actually mostly write that out. Y equals log of x, but in this case, if I type in just log again, it'll take the natural log, and so I can change that to my log of x. And by writing my log, if I had already written it up here, I'll show you in a bit, but basically it'll jump up here, run this code, and then put the number back here. But I'll show that in a second. So my log equals, or y equals my log of x, because I want to take the log, not that natural log, plus x squared minus z plus 3. Oops. Forgot that it likes to have everything in parentheses, or the entire quantity that you want to square, it wants that in parentheses. All right, and now I have initial issues with the line, because when I spaced it, or when I hit enter, it auto-spaced everything. Sometimes I just like to add extra parentheses so it's easy to tell what goes where. So now one problem that we'll have with this is that we didn't declare these variables. And so let's say, hold on a second, let's say x is our input, and we know that z, just from outside knowledge, z is equal to 7, let's say. So we have to declare or dimensionalize this as, let's say, double. And down here, because z isn't an input, we have to dimensionalize it separately. And so we can dim or dimensionalize it as, let's say, an integer. Oops. Dim z as integer. And this will basically say that this will always be, z will always be an integer and will not have any decimals. So, and then at the end, my second function can equal y. Oh, also I forgot to dimensionalize y as well. Dim y as double. Had I just left dim y, it'll still accept that, but it'll dimensionalize it as this variant here. Alright, so, but let's just, I don't know, dimensionalize it as a double anyway. So when I step through the code, actually, I'm going to do this thing. Might be kind of confusing, but if I go up to here, view, watch window, you do not have to, oops, I already have some watches in there. Alright, you do not have to figure this out or know this right now, but a watch window is very, very nice for debugging code. I may get into this more later, but I can click on this and add a watch, and I can click on X and add a watch, and I can put Y and add watch. And so basically, as I'm running through my code, as the numbers or variables change in their definition, it will tell me what the value is here. And so one other thing, I'll get into this later, but compile before you run your code, it's always good to try to compile it because it'll try to look for errors before you even start. And so let me begin. If I press F8, it'll should step through my code. Or maybe not. Let's just try. Oh, whoops. I forgot. Sorry about this. Functions you cannot step into like that. You have to actually have subs. I'll get to this, sorry, in a bit. I have to take this out. Give me a second. Alright, so let's say x just happened to be 3 for our purposes. So let me bring that watch window back up. It would have worked perfectly fine, but to be able to use this watch window, it has to be a sub. I'll maybe try to explain that later, and then I'll also take out this line because subs you should not have the name of the sub be something in the code. All right, so as I step through it, press F8 on Windows. I'm not sure what it is on Macs, but basically, if you can see here, it dimmed these as Z as integer, X as double, and Y as double, because that's what I called them down here. And so now as I go through, it sees the 3, defines X as that value, sees the 7, defines Z as that value, and then goes here. And you can kind of see if I hover over the Z is 7 because that's the last thing in its memory. X equals 3 because it was right there. And so then this will equal, if I just write something right here, P equals 1, Q equals 2. So I step through that. Oops, I forgot to dimensionalize those. Dim P Q. It'll just make those as variants. But I'm just adding those so that it can step through stuff. Like move on from there. You see how in here, my log, there's a function that we wrote up here called my log. It goes up here and we'll run through that to be able to do this operation. So it goes up here, steps through again, log 3, basically the natural log of 3 over the natural log of 10, and spit back what the log 3 is. Then it'll go and place that here. So then it'll evaluate what y is based on this is 0.477, x is 3, so 3 squared is 9, minus 7 plus 3, and it's y out as 5.477, and then it'll just make p is equal to 1 and q is equal to 2. Another note, because I mentioned this in the last video, that the equal sign is not an inequality, it is just a defining process. You can set y equals, actually let's do that up here. You can set y equals 3 here, and as it steps through, the last thing y is equal to is 5.4. After this line though, do you see y is now equal to 3? It was equal to all of this stuff, but that's only one line in the computer's memory. As it steps past that, it'll just reevaluate and redefine everything later. So that's one thing to keep in mind or to look out for. So I'm going to delete some of this unnecessary stuff. Alright, now if you don't want to step through and use a swatch window, let's change this back to a function. Okay, so this is a function I set with for function to set my second function equal to y. I could also just put this right here as well, so just put my second function before this entire inequality or before this line. but it's not really necessary. I can also take out this, oops, and put it back up in here, x as double. One other note, you can also dimensionalize the value of the double. So you can do dim my second function is double, but that's not usually a problem. All right, take out that. You can take out both of these because I stopped using these. And remember, I mentioned this in the last video, but the nice thing about functions is you can use them in the spreadsheets. And so I can say equals, oops, I can say equals, oh, sorry, my computer's running a bit slow, equals my second function. It pops up right there. I can click on that, and then I can enter in any x. And so let's say we want to look at what x is equal to, or what y is equal to. X is equal to 6. I can type in that. That'll basically take this 6 and enter it in for this x right here because it's inside of this function. Redims or dims z and y, sets z equal to 7, and then plugs the 6 in for x and the 7 in for z. And so if I go over here and hit enter, it'll calculate what it would be when x is equal to 6. So I'm going to do something real quick. So if I do equals my second function of that, it'll perform that, and then I can see a whole host of answers. So this is pretty nice. This is why I was saying in the previous video that functions are much more, I guess, variable, or no, I can't think of the exact description offhand that I used in the last video, but it's much more versatile. A subroutine, on the other hand, really requires specific placement in the spreadsheet. I will briefly cover that in this video, but I will cover it more in depth later. So we have that function done. Let's cover a subroutine real quick. My sub. So in this case, we can actually call up my second function as well in here. And so if I want to say, like, I want to have something as a function of y, and so let's say I want to dimensionalize dim, I can't think of a good variable, let's say q, dim capital Q as double. And then I want to say Q is equal to my second function of, we can either have an input here or we can just say as 5. So my second function of 5 plus 3, I don't know, plus my log of, let's say, 9. Alright, divided by 2. Just to make some kind of separate function or separate inequality. It's a little bit more complicated that it'll use both of these. And so in this case, I can use my watch window again. If I pull that up, oh, not watch window. I don't really need most of these. I can add one for Q. But basically, as I jump through, and for this sub, as I hit F8, it'll run through. I'm just going to say P is equal to 1 so that I can finish out the sub. So, oh, did it again. Dim P as variant, or just leaving it. So, if I jump through here, it'll jump up, it'll do the first thing in the line, it'll go through and evaluate my second function with 5 as the input, and so it'll treat, in this case, x as 5. So it'll go through, z is equal to 7, it'll treat there, it'll go up to my log, x is 5 because that's what I put in here, and that's what it used as the input up here. So then it'll go up here and take the log of 5, and and then spit that back here. And then it'll evaluate 5 squared is 25, z is still 7, and plus 3, and so this will set it equal to 21.69. And then once it sets the second function equal to that, it should end and then jump back down here. And so it runs to the next, so it takes this plus 0 or plus 3, and then it'll now evaluate the mylog of 9 and solve for all of that. And then it'll take all of that and equate it to q here, which now is equal to 25.17, as you can see up there. So that's kind of how subs work. The syntax of getting it to spit out in the spreadsheet, I'm just going to get rid of this, is a little bit different. I will cover this more in later videos. My computer froze for a second. Alright, so in this case, I would have to do either range or cells. I'll explain this later, but let's say F3. So basically the cell F3 equals Q. And so when it finally evaluates all of this, it'll just spit out, or it'll set this cell equal to Q. Basically means it'll spit out what Q is equal to in whatever cell I chose. So I'll run through this code real quick. And as you can see, it spit out the answer there. So that is kind of basically the difference between functions and subs and how they can kind of intermingle or work together to, I guess, produce like a full coherent functioning code with multiple parts. So thank you for watching this video. I hope this, I guess, clarified some stuff about what dimensionalizing means and some of the differences, more in-depth differences between functions and subroutines. I hope you followed. I know I probably got kind of confusing within there, or I talked fast, but anyway, I will probably talk about either dimensionalizing something as an array and maybe loops for next video. Thanks for watching.